Hi, and welcome to Two Crones and a Microphone. I'm Betty,
I'm Sally.
I'm Jen.
and Jen is one of our really, really good friends. And I am so excited to talk to her today because Jen teaches children, among other things, but she is a fabulous teacher. And honestly, I honor her. Yes, I'm a nurse. I did a lot of stuff. I teach, but not kids. I can't even imagine trying to corral a bunch of little kids. But Jen, you do a good job of it and you love it. And she's going to share with us some of the techniques that she uses to help her kids just whoosh, relax, take it easy, the old centering and grounding, which you hear me talk about all the time, and tell us a little bit about herself and her journey to become a teacher. So, with that introduction, Jen, I am turning it over to you. Go for it, girl.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to sit here and talk. And yes, I am indeed a teacher. I am teaching in Newark right now. This will be my 8th year. And before that, I was in East New York, Brooklyn for many years. And the bulk of my experience is working with underserved communities. And that's really where my heart is. I feel like I've taken the passion of the protest energy of my college years into the classroom. Um, in college, we did march and protests, and those are all great and necessary, but my energy goes into teaching in the classroom. And I recently got a degree as a reading specialist, and I think that reading is pretty much the key to everything. And that's really what I want my kids, to learn. I want them to learn to read, to think, so that they could have a seat at any table that they want. Um, this is social justice is very important to me. And I feel like educational equity is important. And I feel like to level the playing field, kids need to be able to read. They need to be able to think. Um, and I love it. And I, I do consider my teaching to be my activism, and it is definitely my calling. I know that I was meant to do this, and I love it. I mean, I really do love it. I love every year, it's the beginning of the year. I usually have a classroom, but I'm actually working as an academic interventionist now with small groups, helping them read. So that's a little bit about my background and um yeah, and what I'm doing now.
So, Jen, when did you decide to become a teacher? Were you, as a little kid, did you have like your little classroom set up with your dolls and your board and
Actually, my we did. My sister, Marissa, who's 18 months younger, we did play school. We did do that sometimes, but I didn't really think I was going to teach. I always loved children. And when I was 10, my youngest sister was born, and she was like my baby doll come to life. I fed her, took care of her, loved it. It was amazing at 10 to have a little real baby to play with. So I always loved kids. And then when I went to college, they did not have education when I went to Stony Brook, but they had early childhood development. So I studied that, got a degree in that. But then I graduated and I was temping at this call center, like many young people, my other people, some of my other friends had direction, to be honest. I kind of graduated and was like, well, I love kids, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I was temping, and my mother's friend, Mimi, who will always be close to my heart because of this, called my mother and said, she called her Labor Day weekend, Saturday, and said, oh, I know Jennifer just graduated, and the school I work at, this little Catholic school, a teacher suddenly quit. Would Jennifer want to be a kindergarten teacher? And I said yes. And I walked into a classroom. 2 days later, I had no student teaching, no teaching experience, completely wet behind the ears, graduated from college. And oh my goodness, what a wild ride. I learned everything on the job. It was crazy. It was great, and I automatically loved it. I would get up. I was living in Brooklyn, working in Jackson Heights, so I would get up at 4 in the morning, leave at 5 because I needed to be at work at 7 because the kids came in at 8. So I went to great lengths uh and I learned a lot, and I will say I've always had incredible people around me to help me and guide me. Um and then just quickly I little by little went back, got my master's in early childhood education, got certified and started teaching at the public school in East New York. Um where I was for many years until we moved to Jersey, and then the commute was not gonna happen. I did it for a year, and then I put my, resume on Teach Newark, and I got a job there, and I really do feel like sometimes, when I'm in it, I can't see how higher power is guiding things, but I do feel like I was meant to be where I am, and working in Newark the past 8 years, I had the gift of, getting a degree in reading and becoming a reading specialist. So now I'm using that to put back to my kids because, like I said, I just think reading and teaching kids to think is the most important thing we could do, and it is a skill that everybody needs, and I have very high expectations for my kids, and I kinda don't take any nonsense. I'm like, "Wherever you are, I'm gonna meet you, and we're gonna do this," You're gonna leave better off. That's what I try to do anyway. I do it imperfectly.
Well, I I think we're all imperfect, so I understand that, but I mean, just the thought of you walking into a kindergarten class with no teaching experience, that just blows my mind. I could not even imagine doing that. It's just like, "Oh my god," you know? Ah, what a ride, huh? And now you're teaching reading, which I am an avid reader. I absolutely love to read. I mean, books are my passion, and I think if you look at Sally's office there, you can tell they're hers too. So we definitely, understand how important that is, especially for your kids who are more in the in a disadvantaged school, really, which, by the way, I never knew existed until I became an adult. I went to Catholic school the whole time. We had what we needed, because the parents would pony up the money. But oh my God, I never realized that kids in other areas were getting substandard materials. It was a shock to me. So,
Yeah, it is an underserved community, and that's even why I feel even stronger that giving I don't know some of their struggles and I haven't faced that myself, but I do know that learning how to read and being able to think, is what will, help somebody, like I said, have a seat at any table because that's ultimately what when I say we, because again, I work with a great team of people, and I am a team player. I work really best when I work as part of a team. Like, I like to be part of a school team, working towards the shared vision, in this case of teaching our kids to read, to succeed, and to think, so that they can just do whatever they wanna do.
I think that is so incredibly important. I grew up in a rural area, which I think, folks that are
mm,
listening to the podcast probably know, but I love to read and I started reading really young. And I think that that opened so many doors for me. And not that I didn't love where I grew up, but it opened doors that took me elsewhere and, really led me on my life's journey. So when you talk about being able to sit at any table, that's really true. I mean, I think I didn't have great plans when I was 5 to grow up and be a doctor of nursing, but reading took me there,
Mm,
and the opportunities and my own experience in teaching and working with people. So I love that you have that passion and you're working with kids who are young so that you can really help them move forward and be whoever it is that they want to be.
mhm.
So I honor you for doing that and staying focused on that and seeing how really important that is for people. It's a gift.
yeah. It definitely is. Yeah. So I guess my next question would be, who had the most influence on you?
Well, um, I can't think of a person per se, but it's more of an event that happened when I was young, when I was, yeah, 6, well, 8, 9, 10, 11. I went to a sleepaway camp, a born again Christian sleepaway camp. So there was a lot of religion involved, but that's a whole other part of my story. But I was drawn to that too. And I loved, I'm not born again Christian, although I respect all religions and walks of life. But they talked every Sunday, they did the passion play, and then you could sit behind and accept Jesus in your heart and talk to a counselor. And it was something I really needed at that time. So my memories of it are they're really beautiful actually, because I was missing that. Um and so this was a wonderful camp. I loved it. Went every year. And then when I was about 15, 16, they had a counselor in training program. And we went for 2 weeks where we hiked on the Appalachian Trail, biked through Delaware just with the backpack. And you couldn't have anything there were no phones then anyway, but it was just you were there with God to complete this journey. It was like me and maybe 6 other girls. One thing I remember is when we set up the tents at night, we would have team building things. So one night we had to set up the tent with our hands tied to each other. Um,
Oh, I love it.
and yeah, it's so nice to remember this. But we had to do these different things to develop, a relationship and to trust and to be part of the group. In 2 weeks when you're in that situation feels like a very long time. So we did that. It was really hard. It was really hard. I mean, we hiked hundreds of miles, biked hundreds of miles. I can really even I remember it. But I do remember the feeling of at peace and being with other people who were there for God. Um, so at the end of that, we went back and we showered and we had a nice little fire at the end of this 2-week time. And the counselors who were in charge of this program gave everybody a certificate. And mine said, Jen, most likely to become a kindergarten teacher. And that actually, I still have it somewhere. I have to find it. I know I saved it. I have my little chesto memories that I put important things in. And I know that I've thought about that often. So when I got that phone call from my mother's friend Mimi, which Mimi, if she was such an amazing she is such an amazing person. I right away thought back, like, oh yeah, of course, I should be a kindergarten teacher. Yeah, they said so when I was 16.
Yeah.
Um, and I know it's kind of funny when I say it that way, but I do think it's my calling and I feel honored to do this work. And, I've been blessed with my daughter. I have a daughter who's 12 and she's one of my greatest gifts. And I've been teaching before I had her, of course, and I've always referred to my kids as my kids. And now, even with Madeline, when I always pluralize it, my kids, because I'm always thinking of my kids and getting new books for my kids, Madeline and whatever, my kids at work. Because my heart is always with kids and my prayers are with kids too.
Mm. I love that. It's sort of a different thought, but not really, because I always remember when we would pray with Oceana, her prayer for the world, right? Her beautiful
Yeah.
dream. And we've talked about having a beautiful dream in other podcasts, but her beautiful dream for the world was always that no child should go hungry in the world. And so when you talk about it's a calling and a gift and all of the things you talk about, I can just hear her saying, right, all children should be able to read. No children should go hungry. And
Mm,
so I love it when you talk about it because you talk about children with the same kind of passion
mm.
that she did.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Because I never met Oceana, but I have benefited from her teachings. And one thing that always resonated with me was just that, like the prayers for children. Because when I hear that, I'm like, I'm in. I'm into whatever kind of work, can be done to help the children.
Funny.
So let's do a little commercial here for a second. I know that a lot of the teachers have to buy their own supplies and stuff. Is there any place that we can go possibly to help you out this school year?
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I actually usually I create an Amazon wish list. I've done that over the years. I will put in a plug and say people have been so generous because I do share. I'm pretty vocal that I'm a teacher and that I work in an underserved community. So I don't have anything that I've had. A lot of things come out of my wallet, which is fine. But once you're doing this a while, there is a cap sometimes.
Hmm.
I will say my father has always been very generous, asking, "What do the kids need? What do the kids need?" Which is very sweet. But thank you for asking. I'm putting together an Amazon wish list.
So how would somebody I think this is awesome, Betty, that you brought this up. How would someone, like, help you with that then? I don't really understand that much about Amazon wish lists and how that would work. So I'm wondering if you will tell our listeners and our viewers, for those who are watching on YouTube, how do they access that?
Wow. Well, I always feel a little funny because I hate asking for donations. But since you asked, if
Mhm.
you go to Amazon and then you put in my name, I think my wish list would come up. I have
Okay.
to double check this, but I think that's how it works.
So I would say for those people listening or viewing this, because we'll have the opportunity to do this, is you're gonna give us the way that we can post that on our, site so that people that do wanna do that can sort of follow the instructions of how to do
Mhm.
that. Because when you say that, I know people put, like, shower lists and different things on Amazon, but because I don't really do that form of technology, I would be one of those people that would go, "Oh, I would really like to help, but I have no idea how to do that." So those of you who are listening will have information about Jen and her name, and if we can figure out a way to link to that Amazon wish list, we'll post that online as well so we can have that.
Oh,
And it's for the kids, Jen.
oh, thank
It's
you.
for the kids.
I could provide a link and thank you in advance. That's just
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Well, we have a really good producer. I'm sure she'll be able to figure it out.
It's so
You
cute.
will.
I do think that's fun though, and the nice part for again, for people who are listening and maybe don't know this about you, you said a little bit about it, you share. So if you have the things you need for your classroom and there are other people that need, so people are giving not just to your classroom, but to the folks that you might be sharing it with in the school where you're teaching. And I think that's a awesome thing to think about, right? Because one of the things about this podcast, right? One of our legs of this podcast or supports of this podcast is building community. And to me, this is a way of building community and being an activist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
activist. And you describe yourself as an activist. So nice thing to
And we both know that you are an activist, that's for sure. And of course, Sally and I had our day, many, many years ago where we were out there. We just do it differently now. I don't think we've ever given it up. Um, and it's your turn now, Jen. So this is like absolutely awesome. The other question I did want to ask you, though, for those of you who don't know, I have a private practice where I do see clients, and some of them are teachers, and I have taught them different ways to help their children because they're all like I would call it grammar school, but what is it now? Middle school.
Elementary.
Thank you. Okay. They have different words. Um, Most of them are elementary school teachers. So I've asked them, how do you get your kids to settle down? I mean, I've taught them different ways to do it. But Jen, how do you do it with your children? Suppose they're all like, "Well, like, okay, the holidays are coming. Well, the holidays are coming," and it's very hard to get them to settle in, or they have those horrible tests that they have now. Oh, those things, we had the SATs and stuff. That was bad enough. But now they have a whole bunch of other things to stress kids out. So how do you help them with that stress? Because it is stressful.
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. There are definitely teacher tricks, like, to make sure you do movements, music and movement, we used to call it. But a few things that I've done over the years that I'll share is I have this one book called Breathe Like a Bear, and in it are like paragraph or two meditations. And it's basic, they get the kids like breathe like a bear, like a bear hibernating. What would that sound like? And in the book, it says it a little more eloquently than I am right now, but you get the idea. So, like, after an active period or lunch, they would come in and I'd read from the book. That's one way. Another thing that comes to mind that I'll share is that there is a big test called the NJSLA, and it's the New Jersey State Learning Assessment. They do it in reading and math. So my focus is on reading, and I worked really with the third graders this past year for a few months on this test. And the stakes are high. Like the kids, the school were all evaluated by their scores on this test, which don't get me started on that problem because that's a problem, right? But I I just stay in the solution of what I need to do to help the kids. So, it was like a week before the test, 2 weeks before the test, and I pulling small groups of 6, and they were like, "Oh my god, the test, and I'm gonna fail, and I'm afraid." And I was like, "All right, everybody, sit down." I said, "Forget the lesson for today. Everybody sit down, and we're going to breathe," right? And we talked a little bit about meditation. Do you know what that means? Some of them did. I said, we're just going to calm our breath. We're just going to sit here and listen, put your hand on your heart, put it on your belly, listen to your breath. And I said to them, if you get to a question on a test and then you don't know the answer, that causes anxiety sometimes. I was like, so that's okay. Let the anxiety come. But then I want you to remember this, like go back to your breathing, and just you could always skip the question and go back to it once you have calmed down. Because when you're anxious, you can't answer anything. You're not going to access any knowledge. And then the other thing I did with them, which was really great, was I taught them to put down luminous roots. And, I kind of did a version of a guided meditation that I've learned from teachers where I had them close their eyes and we talked about putting roots down like a tree and imagining it and connecting into the earth and helping that calm us. And, they were receptive. They did it. And does it help them? I hope so. I think, I did notice when I was working with them a few days later that this one child, I noticed her stop for a minute and close her eyes, and I thought, okay, like something is working. So I do that with them. And I love being able to share the other parts of my life, and what has helped me. Because it's taken me a long time to get to this place where I can use these tools. And I think, wow, like I'm 49. Some of these children are, 7, 8, 9. How great if they can access this now and learn how to put down luminous roots.
I think that's really beautiful, Jen. And we didn't really plan a wisdom practice, but I think I'd like to wrap up by taking what you said because what you did was give us a beautiful wisdom practice. And what I honed in on when you were talking is getting past the anxiety or the emotion. So I want to invite everybody to think about when you have a stressful situation, whether it's a test or something else, it's not that you shouldn't feel the feeling. Feel the feeling. Stop, breathe, put down those luminous roots. But your focus of saying, I try and stay with the solution. So when you're relaxing, instead of getting caught up in a situation where the emotion overtakes you, and we all can lose our ability to think clearly, particularly when we're anxious, is to sit and even take notes on what are some of the solutions to what's creating the feeling that I'm having right now, whatever
Mhm.
that feeling is. and stay in the solution. So those are such clear, succinct words of wisdom about staying in the solution. I just want to acknowledge that and love that because that's really beautiful. And a lot of times we don't focus on the solution and our way sort of out of the paper bag, so to speak, right? Because you get kind of lost in the paper bag. The way out of the paper bag and into the world of solutions and resolving things. So thank you for
Hmm.
not just teaching, knowing it, but teaching it to kids at an age where they can grow up and that becomes more commonplace and not something we have to wait to learn as adults.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I think is fun, and I'm going to put it in advertisement for this as we get ready to wrap up. And Betty, I know you were going to say something, as you said, at 49, you learned this. So one of the things that we want to talk about now is we are going to have another interview with Jen, and it's looking into the world of menopause, the mysterious world of menopause, and navigating perimenopause leading into menopause. So watch out for that podcast interview because I'm looking forward. Jen's graciously agreed to be willing to talk with us about what that's like. But I know you were gonna say something, Betty, so I'll
No, not
step.
nothing of substance. Okay. But I am also happy that Jen's going to share her journey because women are finally talking about this now. And when I was going through menopause, it was a freaking nightmare. I think I've mentioned that in the past, but it was horrible. And there really wasn't anybody to talk to
Mhm.
about it. I mean, I talked to my mom, but she had a surgical menopause when she was in her 30s. She was no help, and my girlfriends were all like, yeah, yeah, you get all of that. Yeah. So what do you do about it? Help. So I think this is going to be an awesome, awesome interview, Jen. And thank you for agreeing to do that. It's a very personal journey. I know that.
Well, thank you for asking me because actually, I think that part of the way out of the darkness of different things is to bring it to the light and talk about it. And I don't know why it has always been taboo. And even now, I will say that some people they don't, talk about it. And I am like, it's funny, like, when you're not going through something yourself, it's a little different than when you start
Mhm.
going through it. I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, why why are we not discussing this? Like, this is a lot. So many things are happening. So I am very happy to talk about this.
Good. Excellent.
Well, and this is something we can maybe start the next podcast with, but I think this notion of why don't people talk about anything? Why don't people talk about menstruation? Why don't people talk about right? Why
Yeah.
don't people talk about sex? Why don't people talk about perimenopause? Why don't people talk about aging? What happens when you start losing the people around you? All of these are sort of taboo topics. So,
Mhm.
and things that, we're interested in helping people navigate. So, thank you for taking this one on. Um, I appreciate the fact that in working with Oceana, she gave us women's ceremonies
She did.
and ways of honoring all of these. I'm going to call them rites of passage because if you pick up a book, that's usually how it's titled a rite of passage. But she gave us a lot of things to help navigate some of these times and to honor these places and spaces within ourselves and not just women, but we're focusing on women right now. So for
Mhm.
women. So thank you. Anything else you might want to add, Betty, before we wrap up?
No, just I think this was a great interview. Jen, thank you so much for, being so open and sharing. I'm looking forward to the next podcast, of course, even though I'm well past my menopause years. It still is even though you're past it, believe it or not, it still pops up every so often. It's like, oh my God, I just had a hot flash. Why did I have a hot flash? I'm ancient. Why? But who knows? The body's the body, right? So, Jen, thank you. looking forward to the next one. And I guess on that note, we should end. As usual, I say our podcast is here to help you navigate the muddy waters of our time. Sally?
Did you want to add anything, Jen?
Just thank you so much for having me. It was really fun to sit here and talk and for me to remember, some of these things about my teaching and my journey. So thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah, I love that. And remember always to walk in beauty. Kadishte, all is made beautiful. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, if you're enjoying Two Crones and a Microphone, please like this video and hit the subscribe button. Enjoy timeless wisdom from modern times, all served up by women in the know.